Welcome. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. This is the class on Philosophy 101. Hopefully you found the right one. No? No, this is the class on Social Security maximization. As your flyer has already indicated, a baby boomer will retire every 8 seconds and make a wrong Social Security election decision. So I commend you all for taking the first steps necessary to make the better decisions about how to file, what are the options to file, so that you'll know the right way for you to file. Real quickly, how many of you have already retired? So a handful of you. And so the majority of you are getting prepared to retire here in the next year or a couple of years. So there's something here for everybody, whether you've retired or not. If you have not already made your Social Security election, you certainly have a lot more options than if you've already made that decision. So with that, let me share with you a little background. My name is Warren Wall. I'm your instructor. This course is taught, let's see if I can get this unlocked here. I think it's locked up, Dan?
It's not plugged up.
Aha, okay. That would be an issue. But you've met Kim and you've met Dan, our coordinators. Good. And so my background, to give you a little history, is I am a practicing certified financial planner. This course is taught nationwide in colleges and universities throughout the country by practicing certified financial planners and advisors who specialize in retirement income planning. So we're bringing real life experience to this course, and hopefully that'll be an added value. I'm also a certified with the National Social Security Association. And what that means to you is that I have the education and the history of being able to help my clients make better Social Security election strategy decisions that can make the difference of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars per couple. And we'll talk more about that throughout the course. With that, let me share this other idea with you that does anybody know how many different Social Security election strategies there are? Ideas, thoughts? How many? 5, 6. As a matter of fact, on the Social Security election, or your benefit election form, how many did they show you there? 3, right? Age 62, full retirement age, right? And then what? Age 70. So they only present to you that there are 3 different choices that you have. In actuality, there are over 500. Okay? Now, with that said, we have 2 hours today, and we're not going to be able to cover all of those choices, logically. And we're going to focus in on what we call the top 20% of those strategies and decisions that will make, I think, the majority for you, give you the majority of information you need to help you make your own decisions. Fair enough? Okay. You have all gotten your handouts, correct? And I want to bring to your attention that you have your booklets. You have 2. You have the Social Security booklet called Maximizing Your Social Security by the financial planner and author Dave Vick. You also have a supplemental flyer that goes along with that. If you'll pull those 2 out, we're going to refer to those manuals throughout the course, and we'll be able to supplement what we're talking about with the material. Just on a personal note, I'm the father of 3 young adult children. My wife and I have a new baby in our home now. And I know some of you are thinking, he's way too old to be messing with babies. And I agree. But our baby here is a new 3-month-old golden retriever named Junie. Do we have any pet lovers out in the audience? You know what I mean when I say pets that are at least younger pets. They're worse than babies, meaning my routine has been totally changed over the last few weeks with the potty hours at the wee hours of the night. So if I start talking gibberish a little bit during the class, you'll understand why. We're still going through that phase. But on a serious note, the disclaimer for this class that I must share with you, I'm not a government official. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. I am trained to help people in the area of financial planning. We're not going to talk products. We're not selling products. We're here to talk about the big picture of things that affect you. But I will tell you this. We're going to talk about so much information, good information, that I think you're going to get a value out of. You're going to want to ask me some questions that are very personal. I mean, most of my classes will start throwing out questions about personal issues. This is actually a two-part class. And what I mean by two parts, this is the public session. Your tuition entitles you to what's called the personal strategy session with me. I've allotted 1 hour of my time per household here in attendance to come into the office and bring your personal questions and issues that relate to you. And if you haven't already done so, everybody's filled out your goals worksheet, what you wanted to get out of this class, and passed it to Kim, because I want to review those during the first break so that I can make sure that I'm covering the things that are most important to you. Okay? And also on the back, it's on the back of your evaluation form. I think mine's this color. Hopefully yours is too. It has it's the evaluation form is it green? Okay, so I have the prior one, but yours is green. On there you'll see dates and times. What I'll encourage you to do is during the break or at the end of the program, please turn this in. One, we want your feedback on the workshop and what you thought about it. But I'd like you to also identify a date and time that you'd like to come in to bring with you your questions that are more personal, the issues that you have concerns about, and we'll try to deal with them as best we can in that meeting. I'll also show you how to apply what you're learning today to your own personal circumstances to see which directions you ought to consider going. Participation in the class is valuable, so the fact you came is a wonderful thing, but would like you to participate with any of your questions. We'll get to all that we can with the time we have. And then we talked about filling out the worksheets. I'm curious, what are some of your greatest concerns? Why are you here?
Don't know when to take benefits. Don't know when to take benefits.
Don't know when to take benefits, and I think that's probably the overriding concern for all of us. Anything else? Questions, will Social Security be here?
Yeah.
Is that an issue?
That's a biggie.
Is that an issue? Okay. So, we'll talk about that. As a matter of fact, what I wanted to do is at the very beginning of the workshop, I was going through and on the internet of all places, and there was a video clip of Katie Couric, who was announcing the 80th birthday of Social Security, the 80th birthday when it first started. So what I'd like to do is start this video. It's a very short clip, and we'll come back to the course. Let's see here, Dan. Go ahead and click that on.
It's been called the third rail of politics, and the debate surrounding it is definitely electric.
Now, let me tell you exactly what we would do on Social Security.
One of the reasons that Social Security is in so much trouble is the only funding stream comes from people who get a wage.
Social Security is celebrating its 80th birthday, but you might want to hold off on hanging that piñata or popping on your party hat, because the future of Social Security is, well, not exactly secure. Why did the program get started to begin with? It all goes back to the Great Depression. Times were tough, especially for senior citizens. By 1935, more than half of them were living in poverty. FDR decided to give Americans 65 and older a safety net in the form of monthly checks, so he signed the Social Security Act.
This Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 50 million of our citizens.
The first person to get a check in the mail was Ida Mae Fuller of Ludlow, Vermont. It was 1940. Her monthly payment was $22.54, which back then was a nice chunk of change. Today, the average American collects $1,221 a month in Social Security. That's almost $15,000 a year. You can start collecting your money as early as age 62 and no later than 70. The program is funded through the Social Security tax, a 12.4% tax on all wages up to this amount. Workers and employees split the burden 50-50. But if you're self-employed, it's up to you to pay the whole thing. It's like a bank account. Well, more like a mattress because you don't collect interest. But the idea is that there will be money waiting for you when you retire someday, if you can. Most beneficiaries, in fact, are retirees, but some of that money also goes to disabled people as well as those who are eligible to collect the benefits of their deceased partners. So the whole system was predicated on this simple equation. You put money in, and when the time comes, you take money out. But here's the problem. Right now, almost 60 million people are receiving Social Security checks. Baby boomers are retiring by the boatload, leaving fewer people paying the taxes that keep the system afloat. Get this, back in 1960, for every person receiving Social Security, there were more than 5 people working. Now, it's fewer than 3. That's making for some pretty rough sailing and means the $2.8 trillion currently in the Social Security Trust Fund may start getting squeezed by 2033. So, how can we right the ship? Some, like Chris Christie, have called for means testing, basing benefits on a person's income.
Do we really believe that the wealthiest Americans need to take from younger, hardworking Americans to receive what, for most of them, is a modest monthly Social Security check?
Others believe privatization will grow the fund because Wall Street knows better than the federal government when it comes to making a return on your investment. There are also calls to raise the retirement age, which is currently 67, or reducing the benefits for everyone. Others think workers should pay more into the system, and that cutting Social Security is the last thing we need when so many seniors are struggling.
You don't cut those benefits, you expand those benefits.
The absolute last thing we want to do is cut Social Security benefits.
One thing is certain, as Frank Sinatra would say,
something's gotta give, something's gotta give.
Because the system just can't continue to operate if something doesn't change. In fact, only 20% of Americans who are still working believe Social Security will have enough money when they head to Boca, like Dorothy and the girls.
Now I get it. Oh, good. I thought I was going to have to draw you a picture.
So as the program heads into its golden years, Social Security, long a sacred cow of Washington, will not be easy to resuscitate. But as we mark the birthday of this granddaddy of entitlement programs, at least you can say, now I get it.
Did anybody see this one? No. I thought it was pretty impactful as a first generalized picture of what Social Security is, why it's here. What was the first check amount? $22. You remember her name? Ida Mae. I just stuck, What's the average benefit today? That has really changed. So here's a couple of thoughts. Let's get started into the guts of some strategies, big picture items. I wanted to throw this out. Social Security may be your biggest asset, and when you take a spouse, husband, wife that's working at age 66 who have earned the maximum Social Security benefit, their lifetime, their life expectancy, lifetime benefit is $1.4 million. And for many, that would represent a pretty substantial asset that's there, right? Would you not agree? And the second, you've already heard me tell you, there are 500 strategies that we're not going to talk about them all, but certainly can be very confusing. Making the right decision, election decision, can make the difference for up to $400,000 per couple. And this is a couple of articles written by U.S. News World Report and others that suggest that we're leaving billions of dollars as a society on the table by not making the right elections. So we're going to hopefully change that. The greatest risk to retirement is what?
Your savings.
Living too long, right? It's not dying too soon. And if we look at where age and longevity is going today, this is just some statistics that speak to that. We'll look more closely at that. Just curious, did you all take your test? Livingto100.com?
I did.
What are some ages you lived to?
97.
97? 97. Wow, right? So the real risk is, are we going to have enough to last over an expected life expectancy? That means, you know, the good news about Social Security, if it's here when we get to those ages, is that it's designed to be there for what? How long? Till you die. And even after you die, it continues on to whom? Spouses, or prior, it could be an ex-spouse even. We'll talk about that. It could be a disabled person. It could benefit from your work history. So, but longevity is a huge part of this. And this is the biggest myth of all in terms of planning. I'll simply go down to the local Social Security office, and they're going to tell me what my best election decision is. How many of you believe this? I don't see any hands going up, and that's good, because it doesn't exist. They're there to help you with the laws, to help you understand what maybe you can do at certain ages, just like your benefit statements show you. But their job is not to delve into your personal, your history, and give you maximization strategies. It's not what they do. It's much like you're in when you file your taxes. Wouldn't it be nice to pick up the phone and call the federal IRS department and say, I want to know my best strategies to reduce taxes? Well, are they going to give you that? No, they're not. The government does not provide you with the resources to make these decisions in terms of full strategy decisions. That's left up to you and the education you get and your advisors that you work with, right? Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is learn about some strategies to enhance your Social Security income, how to do this right the first time. I'm going to gloss over a couple of the strategies. I've already told you that we're going to talk about a whole lot of information. And you remember how many filing strategies are there? 500. So I like to equate what we're going to talk about today to an octopus. And if you see an octopus, the head's about 20%, the tentacles are about 80%. There's a lot to know on Social Security rules and regs, and the octopus tentacles are representing that area that we just won't have time to go into. But I'm going to focus on the head, if you will, the 20% that has the most importance to us as a group. So these are some of the assumptions that you need to be, are terms you need to be familiar with that we're going to talk about in class. Social Security SS, FRA, full retirement age. Oh, before I leave it, the first point is today's examples are going to focus around people born between 43 and 54. The reason we're doing that, it simplifies the charts and the illustrations, because if you lived or born within those years, what is your FRA age, full retirement age? 66. If you were born past 1954, what happened?
67.
They pushed you out up to 67. FRA is full retirement age. That's when you get 100% of what is called PIA. That's your primary insurance amount that the government or Social Security Department creates based on your wage earnings history, right? And we'll look at that more closely, but if you can wait till full retirement age, then you get 100% of that benefit. COLA, cost of living. Primary wage earner is the spouse that's earning the most or has the highest PIA. Secondary wage earner is the spouse with the lower PIA. Life expectancy, LE. AMI, average indexed monthly earnings. We'll look at that a little bit more closely, what that means and what these terms mean. So, is the Social Security bucket solvent? What did we, that little video clip that showed Chris Christie talking about means testing. Did everybody follow what he was alluding or suggesting?
That sounds good.
I can't imagine why any politician would promote taking away someone's Social Security. Now, that's me personally. Others might feel differently. But anyways, his suggestion was that if you make over $80,000 a year, then you should not be getting your full Social Security benefit. They call it means testing, and the means testing is the larger your income, the less you can receive from Social Security bucket that you've contributed to all of your life, right? But anyways, that was one suggestion. But what were some of the other things that were recommended or suggested about how to improve Social Security? Do you remember in the film? What else could they do?
Reduce the benefits.
Reduce benefits. That would be an option.
Reduce the tax on the current wage earners.
Everybody hear this? They could increase that tax. You remember what that tax rate was? 12 and a half, I think, 12.5%. They can bump that up. How about the maximum wage that's subject to the tax? What was that amount? 118. 118. They can push that up, and actually they are trying to do that by inflation already. So if they did these things, do you remember the year that we run out of money?
2033.
2033. So if you start doing the math of that, and I say run out of the money, it means at 2033 that you still will get benefits paid up to around 78% of what your normal benefit would be. Everybody with me? And that would last several more years following that at that level. But what people forget is in 1982, we went through this very same thing before, where people weren't, leading up to 1982, they weren't making joint good decisions about how to improve Social Security. Finally, they all came together, the three branches, and they came to an agreement. That's when we went from what age? You remember what the old age was? You could retire 65? You could retire at 65 and get full benefits, and that was raised to 66. And then the cap started raising. They started doing things that pushed this thing out for the long term. The point of this discussion is it's our belief in the profession that they're going to come together again. There will be some compromises made, that our benefits that we're planning for today will be there over our lifetime. That's how we plan for our clients, and I would recommend you do the same for yourselves, is don't get caught in a trap, in my view, of filing early thinking that you're going to get a bird in the hand versus the bush in the future. It's our belief you could hurt yourself. Well, I'll explain more about that as we go along. Okay, so how is your benefit calculated? Just as an overview, they take the last 35 years of income. For some reason, I keep hearing this number 30. If any of you heard the 30-year rule, it's the 35-year rule. They take your last adjusted income that you made in those prior 35 years, and they average it, and they come up with a number that's going to represent what your full retirement age benefit will be. Okay?
So it's their highest, not last.
Your highest, thank you. For some, it would be the last, but for the others who've worked over 35 years, it would be the highest 35 years. What question does this beg? What happens if you've worked less than 35 years? Very good. So the question is, or the point is, if you've worked 30 years, we'll use this example, they add 5 years of zeros to years that you didn't work for the full 30, for the 35. So they average the 35 with zeros in the years you didn't work, right? What does that do to the average?
Decrease.
Brings it down. Okay? Make sense? All right. This table goes back to the life expectancy issue we brought up. It's just to bring, again, more clarity to this and how important life expectancy will be to your own decisions. This is someone who's 65 years of age, or men, women, and couples, which illustrates that, and I'll point out with the couples, that at least 50%, one of you in the couple, at age 65 will live to age 80. Everybody see what happened? At one of you, 88% of you will let one of you there's the odds of 88% that you'll live to 80. At 90, 45% probability that one of you will live to 90. And then what's interesting, 4% probability in a couple that one of you will live to 100. Now, some of you've thrown out your living to 100.com age. There's no perfection online that's going to tell us how long we live, but based on health history, family history, it kind of gives you a general feeling of the likelihood of how long you might live, right? So planning for the long term, in our view, is extremely important unless you know something that we don't know, meaning you know there's some health history or health diagnosis that would limit your life expectancy. And in terms of your own planning with your advisors, that would be a very important discussion to have to make sure that based on that kind of information that you're making the right decisions. All right, so we're going to talk about 6 strategies, general strategies. Claim get it right the first time, don't elect too early. If married, using the living spouse income benefit. If married, how and why you need to lever or consider leveraging the survivor income benefit stream. How to compute your optimal benefit, and then aligning your election strategy with your overall portfolio. So this is strategy 1. By the way, this is on your supplemental. There's a little bit of these slides in the supplemental handout here that you can follow along. And again, I would encourage you to take some notes with questions you might have. This is on my page 3. And the first and foremost issue in terms of strategy is getting the timing right. And when we say the timing, the issue behind this is if you elect a Social Security age election, how much time do you have to correct it? Anybody know? It used to be. What is it now? 12 months. So if you've already made an election, you at least have 12 months from today, or from the date you made the election, to change it. Okay? So getting it right is important because you can't go back and change it. It's stuck. You're stuck for life. So the number 2 strategy we're going to talk more about is don't file too early. And unfortunately, and you'll see why in a moment, it's the majority of people will turn age 62 and elect to take Social Security then. And there's certain repercussions to that decision that we're going to look at that can have material, substantial negative impact in terms of possible income you could have generated with a smarter election. So let's look at this chart as it relates to how you file and the cost or the benefits and the cost of benefits of filing from 62 to 70. This is a chart that is showing you some individuals' benefit amount per month, which is $2,300 a month. And you'll see that at age 66, you see the 100 here. It means they're going to get 100% of that PIA income amount. Now, what happens at 62 if you're going to elect to take your benefits early in this case? Do you see what's happening here where you're getting only 75% of your PIA? So in other words, this number here of $2,300 represents what you could get by waiting to 66, but if you go and take it at 62, you get only 75% of that number. Everybody with me? So I get $1,725. As you see, the longer I delay, the larger the benefit and the larger the percentage of the primary insurance amount, right? Up till age 66. What happens after age 66? What do you see happen? 67. What happens after 60? I mean, what's happening in terms of your PIA? It jumps up. By how much? 8% a year. Now that's the current law, and that's current law guaranteed income increase. How many investments do you know of that provide an 8% annual guaranteed return? It doesn't exist. No, the stock market's not guaranteed. It could generate 8%. Doesn't feel that way this year, does it? But we'll come back to that in a moment. But what it's illustrating is if we could, the longer we can delay that decision, that 100 jumps up to 132%, meaning what was $1,725 a month at 62 is now $3,036 a month at age 70. Everybody with me so far? Now, what else is happening by deferring? Do you see the adjusted benefit at 2.8%? That's the COLA that has been part of the Social Security system since, not always since inception, since the 50s, when they incorporated an adjustment for the rate of inflation. That average has been around 2.8% per year. Now get this, if we start adding the math of the COLA to the increasing amounts of PIA, you start seeing numbers that are even greater than what you've been seeing on your statements, correct? As a matter of fact, if you did the math of $1,725 to $3,786 per month, that's an annualized increase of around 10% a year. Again, how many guaranteed returns are there yielding 10% a year? Everybody beginning to understand the value here of an asset? I consider Social Security an asset class, right? It's an annuity. It's an income stream that is extremely valuable to us, okay? All right, so the key, please.
One question about that chart, though. If I look at the money I could have brought in from 62 to 66, which would have been about $80,000, could I have taken that and invested that and continued working?
Everybody hear the question? Why not take the bird in hand and invest it? All right, let's talk, briefly talk about that. What is your best guaranteed rate of return today?
Guaranteed.
Again, we got to use the word guaranteed because we're dealing with a guaranteed asset here, correct? So to make it comparable. Now, you could take risk with the money and you could invest it in stock and bond and hope for something greater. But you know what the 10-year Treasury rate is today? A little bit, 2% over.
Yeah, but
2.17, yes.
you're not just investing it and trying to grow that you've got the money too.
Yeah.
True.
You've got the base amount.
Everybody hear this?
80,000 in your pocket.
You got 80,000. You got 80,000 before you hit 66, right? So it's logical to say, well, wouldn't that make a huge difference, correct? Well, let's look. You're getting ahead of the game. This is good. That's what this chart is. This chart here tells us where is the break even? Where does it make sense from a math standpoint because you got a bird in the hand. So you see age 62, this happens to be a claimant who went ahead and took it at age 62, and this is the cumulative, in their experience, this is the cumulative growth or receipt of Social Security benefits. And the green illustrates taking it at 70, right? Deferring, taking to 70. Do you see where they cross here? This cross point is age 79. So what it's telling us is where the benefit, offsets the early withdrawal is the break even around 79. Okay, please.
Where is it for 66 then?
It doesn't show it in this chart, but
Do you know where?
I don't know offhand. Yeah, it should be relatively the same, close. Well actually, I might have another chart that I'm going to show you that will show it a little bit differently.
Are these charts in this material?
Some of the material has it, and if it doesn't, and you want the chart when you come in for the personal strategy, please remind me the chart you want, and I'll make sure you get it. All right. So here's the.
Die at 78.
Everybody hear this? What happens if you died at 78? You made the wrong bet, didn't you? If you deferred, right?
Yeah.
But let's look at the law of expected life expectancy. Men, you remember the rule here? About half of us. Now again, this is the 50% rule. 50% chance for men, you're going to live to age 85. Women, age what? 88. One of a couple, what age? Right. So if we're playing with the probability of statistical probability, that's a pretty good bet. Now again, this may be different, right? If you have a history of known short life, then this would have an impact. It certainly would have an impact, and you would plan accordingly. So now we're talking about you and your filing. But if you're in a relationship, if you're married, it isn't all about you, is it? And you'll find that out in a minute. When I say all, my wife loves telling me that. It's not all about you. It's all about us. And the us piece of this is your decision you make is going to potentially have a huge impact on your survivor. And we're going to take a closer look at that here. But it's a balancing act. And the balancing act is this. You know, life expectancy, how long are we going to live? Are you single? Are you married? What are your needs? It's a great idea that you could defer and get a larger bucket, but if you don't want to work till 70 and you still want to defer your Social Security, how are you going to make it in between deferring to a later age, and not working? Do you have other assets that could be used to help bridge the gap, right? We're going to talk more about that. So, strategy 3 we're going to look more closely at is this spousal income benefit, where you can harness the power of your spouse's Social Security benefit. If it is larger than your own, what are the strategies you can use to benefit from that? And the general rule, and we're going to look at some case studies, is the spouse, you're entitled to 1/2 of your spouse's PIA, their age 66 benefit. You're entitled to 1/2 of that PIA at what age?
Full retirement.
Your full retirement age. So we're going to look at case studies on that in a moment. So here's John. John made, or his PIA at full retirement age is $2,200 a month. Homemaker Jane had just a small amount of $300 PIA. So Jane could take 1/2 of John's benefit of $2,200 or $1,100 per month, right? Correct? That's a pretty huge benefit. Many people will overlook that or don't even recognize.
In addition to his $2,200.
So the question is, can he continue to receive his $2,200? Will that impact his negatively? Not at all. We're going to look at that in some case study here in a moment. Okay? So no negative impact. We're also going to look at it for those of you who may have been married before. You can do this with the ex. For those of you who might be widowed, you could do it from the widow benefit side. We'll look at those examples too. All right. So here are the general rules for spousal benefit. Spouse gets 50% of the other spouse's PIA. If you elect, and your spouse can elect to take the spousal benefit younger than age 66. They can take it at 62. But what would you imagine would happen if you're taking it earlier? It's going to go down. And as a matter of fact, it goes down by 35%. So if you take it earlier, which you can, it's a lesser amount. It's not 1/2 of the benefit. It's 1/2 of the benefit reduced by 35%. Okay? There are some provisions that require you, or if you're going to have a spousal benefit election, that one spouse must claim their benefit first for the other spouse to take advantage of the spousal benefit. That will lead us into some strategies we're going to talk about called claim and suspend. Have you heard about this idea? How it turns on the clock that allows the spouse to take 1/2 of your Social Security PIA, but yet still allows you to continue to defer your own personal Social Security benefit until later ages. Okay? We'll look at some strategies there. So this is, we're going to look at another strategy, strategy 4 here later in the workshop, about making decisions in large part based on survivor income. And again, this goes back to this is not all about you, it's about us. And then here's a quick example. This is Jim and Linda Hartland. And Jim was certainly the primary wage earner during life. Linda, homemaker. His was $2,300. Hers was $300 a month PIA. That was the amount of their Social Security benefit. So Jim passes on. What happens? What does she get?
She gets his benefit.
She gets 100% of his benefit, right? At her age 66, right? Her full retirement age. Okay? Now, let's take a quick look at how Jim's election strategy can have a pretty huge impact on her benefit. If he had come in and elected to take at age 62, the earliest time he could have taken his Social Security benefit, and died at his age 82, Linda's monthly income, survivor income, would have been $1,725 a month for a total remaining lifetime widow benefit of $331,000 of income. Okay? Had Jim elected to take his age 70 benefit, and upon death at age 82, Linda would have received certainly substantially more, $3,036, for a total benefit of $582. And what you're seeing here is a difference of a substantial difference of $250,000 lifetime benefit. Again, in the planning phase here, this is certainly something to give great consideration to in terms of your own decision making if you're currently married. All right. So, and then the other strategy we're going to look at is, you gotta look at your own personal vitals. Everybody's been getting their own Social Security benefit statements, right? And if not, we'll talk about how to get those. It used to be we'd get them on every birthday. They stopped doing that, trying to save some money. All right, and the things we'll look at when we do this is the timing. When's the best time? We'll look at PIA. We need to have that vital in order to make that decision. Life expectancy, relationship, and then financials. These are the things you need to know, pull together to make these kind of decisions. And so the Social Security benefit statement, most of you already have one. But if you don't, where can you go? You could go down to the office, or even easier, you can do what? Go online. And so if you haven't done this yet, this is go to socialsecurity.gov My Account. And when you're there, there's a bold button there that says My Account. You just push it. You give the information that you need to give, and then you can go look at your most current Social Security benefit form. You could also see your prior work history and wages, right, which is pretty important if you haven't done this before, to just make sure it's correct, because this is what's going to drive your ultimate benefit. Okay? Have any of you done this before? Online? Pretty easy, isn't it? I mean, it's not hard. But if you make a mistake, and I did the first time I did it, just kind of whipping through it pretty quick, they'll freeze you out for, I think it's 48 hours or so. But come back to it. All right, so let's look at some case studies. And I believe this one is also in your supplemental worksheet. This is the Metros and the Heartlands, and let's look at some strategies. Claim some now, more later strategy that we'll look at with the Metros, and the Heartlands file and suspend strategy. And this is the Metros, and this is a situation where Bob and Mary are about the same in terms of age and PIA. If you'll notice here, Bob's PIA is $2,000 a month. Mary's PIA is $2,200 a month, almost equal. There are a couple of years apart by age, but life expectancy is, Bob being male is probably going to die sooner. And we're showing his life expectancy age 82, and hers is she's going to live to age 86. So, in their situation, here's the optimal Social Security filing solution. And what happened is, in this scenario, Bob, at age 68, files for his age 68 benefit of $2307, while at her age 66, she files for her spousal benefit of Bob's. Do you see the $1,000 here? So what's happening, she's filing for her spouse benefit and she's suspending, she's suspending her benefit. So she's going to collect $1,000 a month in spousal benefits from age 66 to 70, defer her own benefit to age 70, and then switch on at age 70 her own individual Social Security benefit, which is certainly much higher than the spousal. Everybody with me so far? And if we did this, this is what it's illustrating. If they both had come in and filed at 62, their joint household lifetime Social Security benefit would have been $843,000. Had they filed at age 66, each one of them waited to full retirement age and file at 66, the benefits would have been $916. But by simply using the file and suspend, using the spousal benefit, it took the benefits up to over $1 million. Pretty impressive, right? I mean, by understanding that there are strategies that you can use to do this. I will confess that as you look at this, don't be totally overwhelmed, because I don't expect you to walk out of here having this stuff nailed in memory. There's so many different things you can do, and quite frankly, we depend on computers to help us make this decision. So we have the software and the things that we do that actually do the math based on your age and life expectancy and assets to help us make that kind of decision. So I don't mean to simplify it that you should follow this exact strategy. Everybody's is generally going to be different because of all those different inputs, right? Let's look at the Heartlands. The Heartlands, again, you remember Jim was the primary earner at 2,300 PIA, Linda 300. There's a bit of an age spread here. Jim's 5 years older than Linda. And so what we did here is that Jim, at his age 66, did file and suspend. And you remember, well, at his age 66, he files and suspends, which means that he can continue to defer his benefit to age 70, right? So he's deferring, and at age 70, he's going to turn on the larger benefit. In this case, for Linda, her best filing strategy was to go ahead and take it at age 63. Do you see the benefit of $825 a month? That's the spousal income benefit, which is certainly larger than the $300 that she had on her own. What do you notice that's different here, though? You remember the rule for spousal income? What percent is it of PIA? Half, 50%. So you remember Jim's PIA? 2,300. What is half of 2,300? 1150. So when she files at 63, why her number 1150? She took it too early. You remember the rule? You can take it earlier, but you do, it's going to be a reduced benefit. But by the way, the computer suggested that was the optimal strategy. It wasn't for her to defer to age 66. It was to go ahead and take it at 63. It's all about math, right? It's all about the math and also the probability of life expectancy. So in their cases, you can see the differences. You know, had they come in and filed earlier, he at 66 and her at 62, the household benefits of $911. If they had filed at 70, and then by following the recommended strategy, it was substantially higher. Yes?
Don't you have to be married just a certain number of years for all that to matter?
You read my manual.
No.
You're absolutely correct, and we're going to talk about that as some of the other strategies, because what we're talking about right now are couples who are actively married, living together. But we're going to talk about these rules coming up in strategies. What if you were married before and now divorced? Do you qualify to do something similar? what if you were married and the spouse died? We're going to get to that. But good question. Absolutely.
Considering getting married, because you need to be married long enough. That's all.
We're going to talk about that. Very good. Okay. So here we are. We're going to talk about it right now. You see, my slides coming up. Okay. Sally Solo. Sally Solo, in this case, has never been married. And Sally is age 60. She's going to live, according to her expectancy table, to age 88. She has a PIA of $1,600. And what you're going to see here is that we're pretty limited in terms of choices with Sally Solo in this scenario, because in this case, Sally can just simply claim at age 62 and she could collect this amount of lifetime income benefit, or she could just simply defer it to age 70, which is where she gets the max benefit for $481. So there's certainly a difference by waiting and deferring. What if she waits to age 71, 72? Does she get even more Social Security? You don't, do you? It stops accruing at age 70. So part of that is you will always, in our viewpoint, be better off electing a decision sometime between those ages of 62 and 70, but never, ever past age 70. Okay? So Sally Solo really didn't have a whole lot of choice of things she could do under this scenario. And again, this is illustrating what's the benefits to her in terms of elections. She could take it at 62, and this is the cumulative Social Security benefits. She could defer to 70. What's her break point? You see here? Around age 80. So this would be, if Sally knew she had a condition that she was going to die 80 or younger, we might do something different, right? We might take the 62. Of course, we know, none of us know when we're going to die. But if she's in relatively good health, the odds are she'll live longer, and the life expectancy would make it worth her while to carry it out to a later age. Okay. All right. Now here we're going to talk about Sally divorced. How many years do you have to be married to make that work for you? 10. So in terms of planning, and I'm afraid many divorce attorneys don't even know this fact, but when they're counseling people on, divorce issues, it's the timing of a divorce that could be very critical and huge if you're not paying attention. If you're married for 9 years and 11 months, do you get to benefit? No. So from a planning viewpoint, if any of you, that's important. You can get your ex-husband's, you could participate in a spousal benefit in the ex-husband or ex-wife's PIA up to 50%, just like you were still married. Interesting. I didn't add this. You have to be divorced for 2 years to take advantage of this benefit. You could file it after 2 years from your official divorce date. And then you could take your spousal and then switch to your own benefit. You could let yours grow and take advantage of the spousal benefit. What happens if you've been married multiple times? 10-year incremental times. What's that?
You're going to tell us.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have a choice. And the choice is you can jump on one ex-spouse horse and ride it, if it's the better one, until it's not. You can leap off that horse and go to the next one. If it's the third, you can jump to the third. So you have this multiple option or avenue where you can get potentially, you get to choose each and every year whose spousal income you want to base yours, or benefit you want to base yours on. And anyways, it's an interesting situation to work with clients who have been in that situation. But anyways, that's pretty amazing to me that you will have that choice each and every year if you've had multiple spouses for 10 years or longer. So Sally Solo, her single benefits are being illustrated. She took them at age 70. You remember she deferred was her best choice. If she was divorced, prior divorce, taking $1,000 a month with the ex-spouse spousal income, This is just showing you the difference in lifetime income benefits of taking advantage of the former spouse's 50% spouse benefit. Okay? Now, Sally widowed. How long do you have to be married to take advantage of a widow benefit? 9 months. You know, you kind of think 10 years because of the divorce thing, but it's only 9 months. And if you are married for 9 months, you qualify for the deceased husband's PIA, full retirement benefit. And you can elect to take the spouse, you can take the spouse's if it's higher than your own, or not. You could still elect to take the full PIA of the deceased spouse. Now, this is illustrating a scenario that as a widow, you could actually start taking benefits at what age? 60, not 62. So widows are allowed a window that they can take out earlier, the benefit, but it would be less. You remember the benefit of 1/2 of this is 2,000? I'm sorry, 1/2 of 2,000 is 1,000? But she's taking her benefit at age 60. And instead of 2,000, what is it? 1,400, because she's taking it earlier than age what? 66. You guys are getting this. So she's taking an earlier benefit at age 60 per month. It's accruing. She has deferred her personal Social Security election to age 70. That kicks in, and what this is illustrating is how huge the lifetime income benefits for the widow is. Do you remember? It's not all about you. Not all about you. This is an example of a scenario where the widow benefit is so dramatically different and better by the strategies that you can use in terms of the elections that your spouse made. Forgive me, forgive me, and I got out. No, in this case, this spouse, this widowed person was over age 66, so that's why it worked out this way. Okay, so we got a summary. We got Sally single, Sally divorced, Sally widowed, and we can see here the dollar amounts of single lifetime income benefits, Sally single but taking it at 70, Sally divorced, Sally widowed. Pretty huge differences over time. Okay. All right. So what we're talking about today is maximizing Social Security income benefit. But what I would suggest to you, the bigger, larger piece of your process of making a decision is how does that election, that Social Security election, combine with all of your other resources, your income, whether you're working, your assets that you have, your pensions, some of you may have from your work. How does it integrate together in order to make a really good decision? So we're going to take a break here and lead into that next section. All righty, we're about ready to wrap up the last half. This is it going pretty fast? Pretty good? All right, totally confused? Getting a few ideas? More complicated than you ever imagined before? Well, I want to congratulate you all for making this first decision to get education, to help you make better decisions. And as you know, there's a lot of information here to know about. So, but the crux of education is applying what it is you learn to making better decisions. So it doesn't serve you to get information and not actually put it into action. So to help encourage you, and as a reminder, your next session, which is the personal strategy session with me, is your opportunity to bring to my office here in Asheville your list of questions about your particular special concerns and financial needs, and have an opportunity to show you how you might apply some of this information to your own personal circumstance. You have in your handouts, if you haven't already done so, there's the evaluation form that has dates and times. I do multiple classes throughout the year, so my schedule fills up pretty quick. But if you will let Kim and Dan know on the way out, if you haven't already, give them one or two choices. If there's a conflict with the date you choose, they'll follow up with you and try to find a different date or time that suits your needs. To make that meeting with me productive, you don't have to bring anything with you, but I would suggest to make it productive for you is to bring with you a few items. And there's going to be a sheet that Cam will give you. I'll just summarize a couple of them. Obviously, your questions that you have that came from this class are and which you're some response you're going to need from me on that. Your financial and brokerage statements, your most recent tax return. If you're still working, how many of you are still working? Most of you. Bring with you your current retirement plan. If you have a pension, if you have a retirement plan, bring with you what that is. What does that do in terms of the income for you in retirement? And then your Social Security benefit statement. And again, if you don't have it, you've learned how to go online to get that statement, because we need the vitals in order to have a conversation. So I also want to alert you, I think it was a handout that you just got, of two things. We've never done this before. And what I mean never, I do teach classes, multiple classes. This is a class that we're teaching right here in October called The Foundations of Retirement Planning. This is the class that ties together all of what we're talking about with Social Security planning with what we call general retirement income planning. It helps us tie those pieces together so that it can help you make a better overall retirement decision. That's a 2-session class because there's so much material to get through in a different workbook and a different course book. But what we're doing is for this class, if you elect to tell Kim or Dan you wish to attend, it's tuition free. So you need to let us know something within the next day or two. Oh, well, here it is Saturday, but at least something by Monday if you're coming. If you think you're inclined to do it, let them know that so they can get you on the schedule, because that class will fill up. I would certainly encourage you to consider doing, especially since it's free. The other item that I want to bring to your attention is you may have seen a coupon here, and the coupon says 50% off. When you come in for your personal strategy session, we'll talk about some of your questions and options you have. Some of you may choose to use our firm to help you with your planning. If you do, this coupon is only for the students who attended our workshops. It's a 50% off our regular rates, good for up to 30 days. So make sure, when you come in, bring it with you, because if you make that decision, it'll reduce the cost by half of if you would like our help in doing some things. All righty, so let's move on to aligning your election strategy. And as I pointed out, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. We're only talking about one piece today, right? Social Security maximization. But in terms of retirement income planning, the pensions, your investments, the taxes, because are Social Security benefits taxed? Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends on your other income, right? Some parts you may not have to pay tax, but depending on what other sources of income, you may. As a matter of fact, up to 85% of your Social Security benefit is subject to taxes. Doesn't mean you'll pay them, but it's subject to it, right? So how taxes, what your tax situation will be, it plays into it. The insurance question is simply in terms of relating your planning strategies. I think about the things that can blow up a retirement plan in a heartbeat. And what would be one of the biggest ones? Medical expense, long-term care expense, expenses that are not covered by Medicare, or may be covered by Medicaid, but would require you to have nothing in order to get the help. So for those of you who have assets, there are certain risks related to retirement planning, right, that relate to this need that you might have. So we know these are things to consider. So we call them bombs. This is just to kind of give you a visual of planning not only for your best Social Security election, but what else can influence negatively the outcome of your future retirement income and goals. It's not just the elections, but how you asset allocated, where do you have your assets? How do you withdraw money from the different buckets? What do you have to do in your 401ks and IRAs at 70 and a half? You have to start taking that out. Is that money taxed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So when you add that money that's coming out of your 401ks and IRAs and add that to your Social Security, right, you may have larger taxable income than you even think or know that you will have. And how do you plan for that? What else could be a bomb in your
Stock market.
stock market? Has it been a bit crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a real good 5-year run, but I mean, this is I don't mean to overwhelm you with data and statistics, but just to visually see it, this is 1997. This is the S&P, and it's showing you the index of the S&P from high to low. The numbers I look at is here's periods of time from 97 to 2000. The market was up. The S&P was up 106%. And then periods of time it drops 49%, over a period of years, and then up 100, down 57. Here, the last stretch from 09 forward, we've seen it up almost 200%. Any guesses where it might be going next?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we think of markets and cycles, is it very probable that we could go through another downturn? Sure. Absolutely, especially in retirement planning. Remember, the life expectancy we all are faced with now is growing, meaning that the likelihood is in our retirement we're going to live through another down market. If not this year, at some future year. So how do you allocate? How do you protect? What do you do to be more conservative with assets? Because if you are depending upon too much money that is invested too heavily in the markets, then you run the risk of having asset declines that won't support the income you need to pull from it, right? And that's not only true for stocks, but here recently the Fed met yesterday, right? And they were deciding about whether to raise interest rates. What was the news? No. They say no. But was that good news? No. Maybe not, because the Fed wasn't doing it because of their concern about what? The general economy and the international economy. So it makes you start wondering, well, what do they know? I don't know. And the markets took a pretty big dive here on Friday. Who knows what will happen? But the point of it is, bond markets are dramatically impacted by what? Interest rates going higher. And what this is illustrating, not to overwhelm you, but if I had a 10-year duration bond or bond fund, and if interest rates simply increase by 1%, do you see the negative 12.5%? The value of that bond or mutual fund would drop by 12.5%. So I don't think any of us would argue with the belief that the Fed will eventually increase interest rates. Am I correct? Does that sound right? So if we own bonds, we might be at higher risk in the bond market than we've ever been in the past because of that possibility of rising interest rates. So both the stock and the bond markets can certainly play havoc on our portfolios, which are supposed to be the engines for some of us, in addition to Social Security that will help supply an income stream for us in retirement. So how do we put those pieces together? For those of you signing up for the class that we're doing called The Foundations of Retirement Planning, it's based on this book by David Vick. As a matter of fact, Dan, make sure whoever signs up gets a copy of that book on the way out. We'll give it to them in advance. But that book touches on some of these issues. Yes?
Is your personal session here, or is it?
Oh, it's my personal session is my office in Asheville, and they'll give you a map. I'm right near the tunnel over here.
Okay,
yes.
On College Street?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But the course here is going to be taught here at this college, right? So it's same place you're at right now. Okay? But let's talk about this briefly. Dave Vick, I have a little clip that we're going to look at to introduce you to a little bit of his philosophy of asset allocation, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that in detail. So.
Hi, my name's Dave Vick. I'm the creator of the ABC planning process and the ABC planning model. What we're going to do is demonstrate for you the power of the ABCs and your ability to simply allocate assets in this model. To do that, we're going to create the ABC Financial Network. So ABCFN. Pretty soon you're going to see the ticker symbols roll at the bottom of the screen. And right over here to my right, you're going to see the ABC model appear before your eyes. What I want to do is describe the columns A, B, and C to you, and you would simply choose what percent you would want in each column. So column A are assets that are cash assets. They're typically low interest rates, very liquid, and they're like your savings accounts, your CDs, cash accounts, and they're protected typically by FDIC. Column B, the green money column, are also protected assets, and they're tax-deferred, moderately liquid assets with a moderate rate of return. And then column C are your red risk assets, assets that are stock or bond type risk. And they can be liquid, they can be set up in trust accounts. Most of the money in column C is found in your 401ks and your IRAs. So now ask yourself, what percent of your total investable assets would you want in column A? What percent would you want in column C? Subtract that number from 100 and you get your column B allotment. So let's just say if you wanted 10% in column A, liquid in the yellow money column, and you wanted only 30% at risk in the C column, that would leave you with a 60% allotment in your protected green money strategy for retirement. That gives you a balanced approach according to your risk levels, the risk that you choose, and the liquidity you choose. So let me show you liquidity. Column A, all liquid. Column C should be all liquid. Column B are assets that are moderately liquid. So if 10, 60, 30 were your split, then you'd have 40% of your assets liquid at any time. But the ability to choose your protection, your liquidity, and your risk is the power and simplicity of the ABC planning model. That's the power of the ABCs.
Okay, so we're going to jump into, this is in your workbook here, Social Security workbook. If you go to page, page was that? I think it's 29, forgive me. Yeah, page 29. I just want you to see where in the workbook this is and why. Well, you're going to learn a little bit more about ABCs, and I'm going to give you a quick review of that here as well. And again, the course that we're teaching in Foundations will go in much more detail than we have time to do today, but I want you to see how this fits into your Social Security decision making. To remind you what Dave's talking about, there's 3 things you can do with money in this modeling process, ABC. This is ignoring assets that are your home. This is just assets that we consider liquid that could generate for you in retirement income. We can divide it up into 3 buckets, A, B, C. As he defined before, the A bucket is the liquid bucket. That's what you put at the bank, have bank invested in CDs and the money markets. It's generally 100% liquid. It can't, short of major bank crises, you can't lose money, right? But what's the downside? You can't gain money. As a matter of fact, I'm illustrating a return of 1/4 to 1.25%. That might be high even, but it's to illustrate it's where the low return money is. The B category is what he defined as the guaranteed income, or the guaranteed bucket. That's where you have no risk to the principal, but you have a chance to earn or generate returns 3 to 7%. Moderately liquid, typically tax deferred. We'll talk about what those assets are in a moment. The C is the category of stock and bonds, typically what we own in 401ks, IRAs, that have an opportunity to generate rates of return that are high, right? And that's what the positive 30% return shows. But they also have the opportunity to do what? Go down, okay? And so that's why we have the arrows pointing up and down. And so, it's really, as David talks about in ABC planning, it's a decision that we all make and should make about what allocation we feel most comfortable with our money. rather than a stockbroker or even a financial advisor telling you what you should do in terms of diversity, it should come from you. How much risk are you willing to take with what you have in terms of your retirement planning? Wouldn't you agree that's more important? So oftentimes, unfortunately, some advisors will advise their clients that you ought to have 60% in the stock market and 40% in bonds. But if you review what happened to the 2008, were some of you investors in 08, the balanced portfolio of a 60-40 split lost how much? Almost 30%, and that's with 40% in bonds that were traditionally supposed to do what? Protect us and give us balance. But what's happening, and this is in the high finance world, what's going on is stocks and bonds are becoming more correlated. It's just a fancy word to tell you that when the bond markets go down, stocks tend to go down, vice versa. There seems to be the more correlation. It used to be I could buy stocks in China, Japan, Europe, and our country, and if Europe was down, the U.S. was up. If China was up, the U.S. might be down, but there was some balance there. What are we seeing instead? They're all kind of moving in correlation together. China's down, we tend to be down. I mean, this is not absolute. There is a general relationship, and I think the reason, we don't know 100%, but we think it's because we're becoming a more global economic society, aren't we? Most of our top companies in this country do business overseas. So what happens overseas has dramatic impact on the value of those stocks and bonds in this country. So anyways, there are some rules that David talks about in the book called green money rules. For some of you, this is a newer concept, but rule number one, if it's a green money asset, it's got to be protected. It's got to protect your gains, meaning you can't earn something last year and lose it this year. It's got to protect your income. It's got to provide you with a guaranteed income source. So I want you to understand that from Social Security planning, if you had to put Social Security as an asset class, where would it be? In what category? Is it yellow money? Is it green money? Is it red money? B. It's green money, right? It's guaranteed. I mean, as long as the government's here. You can't lose. I mean, theoretically, it's never happened, right? So I think of Social Security as a green money kind of income. Well, it is a green money income. So the question begs, what other kind of assets might produce something similar if we wanted to diversify our assets in a way that we could actually recreate Social Security style income that's guaranteed? One way to do it, and this is an idea to talk about, is annuities. I don't want to overwhelm you with these numbers. Here's what this is, just a chart showing, is a client who had $300,000 was asking me the question, you know, how could I generate income for life? If you see that 27.8, almost $28,000, 27. They came in with 300. Says, I want to generate an income for life I cannot outlive. I want to compare that to what would I have to earn in another investment to be comparable. So what we did is a calculation. Do you see 6.91? In other words, I would have to take that $300,000 and generate almost 7% guaranteed to be equivalent to the annuity lifetime guarantee payment that you're seeing compared to. Does that exist? Is there a 7% guaranteed asset out there? No. It doesn't exist. So again, annuities, as a general category, might be a place for consideration in the green money asset category that could produce for us lifetime income streams similar to Social Security that we cannot outlive. So some people use annuities as a form of private pension money. It's like the Social Security. It's designed to provide income for life. You can set it up for joint life as well. And it can also, just like Social Security, be set up so it's inflated. As the longer you live, it isn't just this much income, but it goes up as you age. Yes?
What's an annuity? I don't know what the word means. It's a kind of
an annuity is a guaranteed income payment for life. is what an annuity term sound, but in the terms of planning, annuities are a product that you can invest, like stocks, bonds, and annuities that are designed to provide an income stream for life. Now, certain kinds of annuities. There are other kinds of annuities, and this is again to illustrate another B asset for you. This is called fixed indexed annuity. This is a product in the B category that would be really has some real interesting bells and whistles for clients who are trying to simply grow money, but they don't want risk to the principal or risk to the prior year gains. And what you're seeing is an example of a fixed index annuity. By the way, I'm not promoting you go out and buy this. It's just to help for education purposes. I want you to see how they work, and it may or may not be appropriate for you depending on your own ABC plan. But this is illustrating how a typical indexed annuity works. Indexing means that each year you get a declared rate of return based on an index. This happens to be an index based on the market, the S&P 500. So an annuity is designed in this case that will give us a rate of return that is indexing to the stock market. But what's interesting, and this is 1998, a real indexed annuity, here's the red of the stock market going up, and the green represents the indexed annuity. Do you see how the annuity is going up not quite as high as the market? There's no free lunch, and what I mean by that...
What is the annuity being invested in?
Good question, I'll come back to that. But let's get the concept, but I want to tell you how they do it. Do you see that the difference of the return is less than the market? And I know you can't see these numbers in the back, but the number's shorter than the market return. And what's happening is in an indexed annuity, you have what are called caps. Caps are they'll let you earn up to a certain amount of the index. Typically, something around 5 or 6% in a year is the general amount that they'll cap it to. So you can earn up to that amount. So if the market made 10%, you might get 5 or 6, right? If the market loses, as it did here in 2000 down to 2002, do you see how it stays flat? It cannot lose prior year gains. And when the market starts moving up again, it starts moving up with the market. Then the market drops. You see how it stays flat? In other words, the design of a green money asset is that it cannot lose principal or prior year gains to be counted as a green money asset. Do bonds belong in green money? Why? They can lose money, right? So bonds belong in what category? Risk or red money, right? Because they can drop in value. So just want you to understand, give you some general ideas of what a green money asset is. So we all have to make decisions. It's trade-offs. Ideally, I mean, wouldn't we all love to have a liquid asset that's absolutely guaranteed, that can unlimited earnings? Yeah. Does that exist? No, never. If anybody ever tells you that, you run. What you have to do are trade-offs, and the trade-offs are, if I want growth or gains, I give up what?
Security.
Protection, security. If I want liquidity, I give up gains. If I want to protect my assets or have protection, I give up, and that's usually some liquidity. It's not like a CD that you can put money in and rip right out. You have some liquidity features, but they're designed as moderately liquid. Everybody follow what we just walked through? So these are the decision-making processes we all need to go through to make a decision about what is the best allocation for our money. This is an example, and again, not to overwhelm you with a lot of details, but I want you to see an example of a client who had $500,000, this is the dollar amount here, who identified to me that they had 10% in the A category and they had 90% in the risk category. You'll note they had 0 in the guaranteed category, right? And this $500,000 was divided up according to their allocation that they had. And what you saw happen in this decade, 2000 to 2009, we had a number of negative years in the market, right? And for over a 10-year period of time, that $500,000 actually dropped to 417 over the 10 years for an end of the 10-year loss of over 80,000 with a loss of 16% in 10 years. Made nothing but lost money in 10 years. Now I want you to put yourself in the mindset of a retiree who's designing a portfolio to draw income off of it, right? And if your assets are diversified in the red money risk or too heavily in the red money risk, this doesn't even show you the negative impact of having pulled money off of the account. Because you remember, you're retiring and now you're living off this money. Any money you pull off just magnifies the loss, right? Now, instead, what if we had allocated more appropriately for the risk tolerance? And this happened to be, in their case, it was a 10-60-30 split. And you'll see the same 500,000 being allocated differently here. And what you see at the end of the 10 years is they actually made money. I mean, the 500 actually grew during that period for a gain of over 21%. So being properly allocated can make a huge difference. In this case, it was over almost $190,000 difference. So the question you got to ask yourselves is, what percent of assets do you want guaranteed? And that's a decision that you need to make in terms of, especially hopefully, before you go into retirement. Okay? You don't want to find this thing out. You don't want the bombs to hit and destroy your plan, because all it takes is another down market period that can wipe out all of our retirement income goals. All right. So I'd like to share this example of how integrating your assets and Social Security decision had impact in this case. This is actually a client that we got from one of our workshops here. George is going to retire. I've changed the names, by the way, so that people aren't offended by my sharing any personal private information. I don't do that. George is going to retire at 66. Sally's younger. She's going to retire at 62. They had a goal, and their goal is they wanted to have $5,500 per month of retirement income that would inflate by 3% a year. So when you do retirement income planning, you always want to plan for what your needs are, but you need those needs to be inflated to keep up with the rate of inflation, right? So it's not just getting, in their case, $5,500, because that won't buy the same amount of goods and services in 5-10 years, will it? Because of inflation. So we want to plan for that. George had Social Security income he could take at his age, 62. By the way, they're both 58 in this example. At 62, his ability to take out $2,087 a month was there. Sally could take hers at 62 at $1,240. George had a pension that he could start drawing at 66. Sally had a pension that she could draw at 62. So we looked at where the amount of income they would have going into the retirement. And we're thinking initially, hey, this looks pretty good, right? Their goal was how much a month? And they have what? 54, so they're not far off, are they? What did we not do? What did we not take off that number? Taxes. Thank you. So we determined by their tax bracket, they're in an effective 22% tax rate. Effective is different than marginal. It's just the total tax you pay relative to your total income. So after tax, they really had just a little over $4,000 a month towards their goal, which wasn't going to meet their goal. So we then had to go, where else could they generate income? And they had assets. They had an investment assets, a variety of things, and there's the shortage per month. So they had assets, and in their cases, they had a variety of assets in 401ks. They had some IRA accounts, a little over $500,000 in diversified portfolios. And when we plugged that into the computer, and what this computer system is telling us is they began with, at their age 58, you remember their assets were around 500,000? 580, I think, roughly. They actually, they're showing, because they haven't yet retired, we're projecting that their assets will actually continue to grow because they're still working until they retire. Then they turn on the income, and the income inflated that they need to take out along with the Social Security election they were planning for. The election they were planning for was to each take it at age 62. So we built that into the plan. And what happened is, what you see the red number? It means their assets, what happened to their assets? It ran out by age 93. So we might want to plan the Kevorkian thing about 92, 90, no. The point of it is, this is our worst fear, is planning a retirement that our assets do not keep up, all right, over time. So instead what we did is we went back to the Social Security maximization software. We ran the analysis to select what the computer would tell us is the maximum Social Security election that they should choose. We incorporated that maximum Social Security election in their plan, and look at the difference. Now, there's a little bit more to this that you're not seeing behind the scenes, but we made some other adjustments on what buckets they would withdraw from. You remember they had varieties of assets, some IRAs, some 401ks, some non-IRAs. From a tax planning viewpoint, deciding which one to pull money out first is really critical. But by making these decisions, we made a huge difference in terms of the before and after. Would you not agree? Yeah. So making the smart decisions about retirement, not just with Social Security maximization, but how it all integrates, is a huge, huge piece of whether or not you're going to be successful with reaching your retirement income goals. But wouldn't you want to know this before you reach age 93? So this is certainly the importance of planning. Questions? So I'd like to kind of summarize on these ideas and points. As a planner, I've identified what I believe are the key reasons why people fail in terms of their own retirement planning. These are the key points. As you just noted, selecting an incorrect Social Security election can have huge impact. Poor investment choices. We talked about ABCing your assets, making smarter decisions about how you allocate and diversify between yellow, red, and green money assets. This is not a topic we've had time to talk about, but underestimating your health care expenses. It goes back to, how are you going to manage the uncertainty around the health care issues? That's a biggie. No retirement income plan, not knowing where you are today, not knowing what you're going to need for tomorrow, and keeping up with the inflationary piece. And I think the worst is procrastination, right? And procrastination means it's just knowing that you're not doing things the right way and putting your head in the sand and thinking they'll all go away. And ultimately they don't go away, they get fester, they get worse. And so this is that famous guy who came up with that definition of insanity. What was that? Thank you. Did everybody hear that? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So again, I would encourage you all to use the information you've gotten today, take advantage of this education, take advantage, of course, of your personal strategy session coming in, and I look forward to meeting with each and every one of you to discuss further what your options are to help you.